I want you to rock the interviews. I want you to feel so confident, so prepared, and so at ease that you wake up the day of the interviews and think, I got this. I'm going to strut my interview stuff. So I wanted to make this video because I receive a lot of questions from coaching clients asking me, how do I go about preparing for the interviews? Where do I start? What should I focus on? What should I expect? My answer to the last question is expect anything and everything. I wanted to take you through this 4-step interview preparation process that will help you with more structure. So you're not all over the place, because it can be overwhelming to interview. I totally understand. I have a lot of clients who tell me that they're anxious, they're nervous, they don't like the spotlight on them. And so with this 4 simple step process, you are going to feel prepared. You're going to have powerful examples, and you're going to go into the interviews potentially having some fun with the experience. So step number 1 entails creating a list of general interview questions. These are questions that any company may ask you. Some examples include, so tell me about yourself. What motivates you? What are your strengths? What are your areas of development? What is your leadership philosophy? Tell me about your greatest achievement. And it's really important that you have this bank of questions to help you move into interview mode. Because on a day-to-day basis, we don't call up our friend and say, hey, yo, what's up, Johnny? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And by the way, that question should be banned. I think it's so silly. Instead, we should ask, what is the vision for your career? What's your long-term goals? What are your short-term goals? And so it's really important that you take time to reflect on your career and you sit down and think about how are you going to answer some of these general interview questions. The second step in interview preparation process is to create a list of role-specific questions. And I have 2 recommendations here. First, we want to marry the job description with your resume. What does that mean? We want to go through the job description and focus on who is the ideal candidate for the role. And we want to align our experience, our skills, and our strengths based on what is highlighted in the job description. The second recommendation I have is to use ChatGPT. Simply copy and paste the job description into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to generate 10 or so questions that could potentially be asked of you based on the job description. And this is really going to be helpful for you to work through your answers. And so what I recommend here too is thinking about how do you make a compelling case as to why you are an ideal candidate for the role. You know, I always encourage coaching clients to think about the interviews as an opportunity to be like a defense attorney. You're coming in, yeah, I have my points, I have my facts, I have my figures, and I'm going to shine during the interviews. So then the third step I recommend is to create a list of company-specific interview questions. And this is an important step in the process because when you're interviewing, you're not only being assessed for your fit for the role, you're also being assessed to see, will you thrive within the company? Will you either be a culture fit? It's an outdated term depending on where the company is on their DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion journey, or will you be a culture add? Are you going to bring a fresh perspective? Do you have a different background that really may be valuable to the company depending on the gaps that they may have? So I recommend here taking a look at the mission of the company, the values, reviewing employee testimonials, customer feedback, understanding the CEO, the leadership team, and thinking about, if I am at this company, will it be an ideal match based on my values and based on my priorities at this point in my career? And I think it's so important during the interview process to interview the company as much as they are interviewing you. Because often I hear from coaching clients this concern, like, well, what will the company think of me? Will they like me? What if I screw up? What if I don't do well in the interviews? I'm like, look, let's turn the tables here. Let's figure out, is this role a really good match for you? Are you going to be happy in the role? Will you, thrive long-term at the company? And so that's why it's really important to take this time and start determining throughout the interviews, like, how do you feel? Are you excited? Do you feel energized? Are you ready to dive in? Or do you feel like this constriction when you're meeting with the interview team and thinking about yourself in the role? And then finally, the fourth step in the interview prep process is to create a list of questions for the hiring team. And this is an opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, to really understand what the role requires, understand the expectations of the hiring manager, understand the culture of the company. So some examples of questions that you could ask, especially the hiring manager: tell me about your ideal candidate. What are you looking for in your ideal candidate? Why is this role open? Can you tell me more about the 30, 60, 90-day onboarding integration plan? You can also tailor your questions, which I highly recommend, based on the interviewer. So let's say you're interviewing with the CEO of a startup. You would focus more on strategy, vision, culture questions, versus if you're interviewing, let's say, a fellow engineer who would be a peer, you'd focus more on the day-to-day. Tell me about the technical challenges. Who are you interacting with? How do you like working here? What brought you to this company? So you're going to walk away from the interviewers really asking yourself, how did I feel? What do I think about this opportunity? Did I connect with the interviewers? Was there chemistry? Did I have a positive candidate experience? And I think what's even more important is to figure out, how can you improve with each interview? Because as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, we don't interview every day, right? And we have to work our muscles, right? We have to get into interview shape. And it's okay if certain interviews do not go that well, because there may be times we don't connect with the interviewer. We may be totally thrown off by a question that we weren't prepared for. So know, if you take this time, you can get better and you can improve for future interviewers, and you learn more about yourself and what you're looking for in your next role. So I want to hear from you. Tell me about your interview experiences. Feel free to share any questions that you have. If you would like support, I love conducting mock interviews with coaching clients because I really want them to excel in the interviews. I want them to have a positive experience. I want them to feel like, they did everything on their end to really put their best foot forward during the interviews. So I want to thank everyone for taking time to watch, and stay tuned for the next video.